A Course in Miracles says, the miracle is the first step in giving back to cause the function of causation, not effect. I'm going to read that sentence again because this is the sentence from A Course in Miracles that I'm asking Holy Spirit to comment on. So again, the miracle is the first step in giving back to cause the function of causation, not effect. And then I asked the Holy Spirit, what would you like to share regarding this thought? And this is the Holy Spirit's answer. This is why reversal is needed. Reversal cannot come from you, for you believe in the upside-down world in which you seem to be. You believe you are there and others are there with you. You believe the world is independent of you and you are mercy to its effects. At best, you believe you can adapt and find some happiness. You can win and then look away so as not to see the pain that you believe is not yours. You can deny your thoughts or accept them as meaningless. And in doing all of this, you seem to be okay, maybe better off than most, but you are never fully satisfied. So what Holy Spirit is describing in this first paragraph is really the mind of a person, and of course the person would be me. The mind of a person that believes the world is real, and certainly believes that the world is cause, and so the person is subject to the world in the language of NTI, or the person is victim to the world in the language of A Course in Miracles. But it doesn't have to be as bad as it could be. In other words, the person does have some limited power, and that limited power might be to choose their attitude or to adjust or to find the silver lining in the clouds. But what's really important is, although the person can make the best of the situation and be reasonably happy, as it says in this paragraph, better off than most, there's still a belief in limits. There's still a belief in that can only go so far. There are just some things that that limit the individual, limit the person. Some things that you really can just not be satisfied with. And so there's never being fully satisfied. And this is, I want to say the kind of person I was, but what I'm realizing is the kind of person that I still am. I remember my aunt told me when I was very young that I was always very good at making lemonade out of lemons. You know, that when the world gave me a bad situation, that if anybody could be happy with it or do well with it, that I could do that. And, you know, it's true. But that is not the same thing as not believing in the world. That is not the same thing as letting go of self. And so this is what Holy Spirit is really pointing out in this very first paragraph, especially in this last sentence where he says, and in doing all of this, you seem to be okay, maybe better off than most, but you are never fully satisfied. Holy Spirit continues, you are never fully satisfied because you believe in lack. And that which you lack, you cannot find. You look for it in relationships, accomplishments, things, food, security, and good times. Like an anesthesia, you may seem to laugh and be happy for a while, but your satisfaction never lasts. So it is on to the next thing that might finally fill the lack. Holy Spirit continues. You can never find that thing because there is nothing that you lack. That's a pretty important sentence. If we're searching outside of us, trying to find that thing that can satisfy us, we have to fail because what we're doing in the first place is that we're believing that we lack. So we're looking for something to fill a space within us, a lack within us that doesn't actually exist. And if the space within us, the lack within us, does not actually exist, we can't really find anything to fill it. A Course in Miracles says that we shouldn't try to change the world, we should change our mind about the world. But the same thing is true about trying to fill the lack within us. We need to change our mind about the lack within us. We need to realize it's simply not there. So again, Holy Spirit says, you can never find that thing because there is nothing that you lack. You are complete and perfect within the fullness of God now. And this is why the miracle is helpful. It gives you nothing because you need nothing. To give you something would validate the belief in lack. Again, a very important couple of sentences. Let me go on to the next paragraph and then we'll come back to this one and talk about them together. The next paragraph says, the miracle is a simple shift in perception, a change in seeing. So all that was before still can be within illusion, but the lack that seemed to be is gone. This is really important. We often talk about miracles as experiences that we have in form. And I'm not here to knock that, because we have some great experiences in form that come from choosing trust instead of fear, that come from our willingness. And I think it's wonderful to celebrate these experiences in form. But what Holy Spirit is talking about here is something different. Something that's really even more important. He's talking about a shift in the mind that is so profound, so awakening, that nothing has to change in form. because we just see so incredibly differently now. And he's saying this is the most helpful thing of all, is these shifts in the mind rather than these seeming miracles in form. These shifts in the mind that are so profound that nothing has to change in form, because they do not at all reinforce the idea that something was lacking or missing in the first place. In fact, these miracles that are just shifts in the mind help us to see clearly that there was nothing we needed to be happy except to make the choice through willingness to simply see differently. I'm going to read these 2 paragraphs again. Actually, I'm going to read 3 paragraphs, starting with "You can never find that thing." This is when we're searching for something outside of us to fill some kind of lack within. You can never find that thing because there is nothing that you lack. You are complete and perfect within the fullness of God now. And this is why the miracle is helpful. It gives you nothing because you need nothing. To give you something would validate the belief in lack. The miracle is a simple shift in perception, a change in seeing. So all that was before still can be within illusion. But the lack that seemed to be is gone. Also, one more important point about this sentence, because the ego and the mind right now might be screaming out of fear that the miracle is some sort of sacrifice, because something that we need in form, whether it be money or food or whatever, is not going to be provided. I would just like to point out that what this sentence says is, the miracle is a simple shift in perception, a change in seeing, so all that was before still can be within illusion. And the reason I point that out, still can be within illusion, is because it means that the suffering that seemed to be there because of the seeming lack disappears without anything changing in form. But it does not mean that things will never change in form. For what may follow that perception shift may also be a change in form. But then it will no longer at all be perceived that that change in form was required. It's kind of like in NTI 1 Corinthians chapter 15, where Holy Spirit is describing enlightenment. And he says, you will not need food, but you will eat with joy. Just because you do not need food any longer does not mean the food is not provided. So if the ego is jumping up in some sort of fear and saying that the miracle as we are describing it here is a sacrifice, just know that is not true. The miracle is a simple shift in perception, a change in seeing. So all that was before still can be within illusion, but the lack that seemed to be is gone. The miracle recognizes truth and denies the false. That is all, because that is all that is needed. And we all know that A Course in Miracles teaches us that love cannot be taught. That really all we need to do is find and let go of or forgive the obstacles to love's presence. That is denying the false. Not in the type of denial that comes from fear, of course, not the type of denial that represses it, but the type of denial that says it simply isn't true, and recognizes that in honesty. The miracle recognizes truth and denies the false. That is all, because that is all that is needed. Everything is accomplished as it was accomplished long before the dream began. And what is accomplished in reality cannot be undone, or reality would not be the truth of existence. If reality is not the truth of existence, then God is dead, and all that is, isn't. Yet you know this cannot be, for you realize that you exist. This is one fact you cannot deny. You are existence. And this, you know. This is really the beginning of a period of time, which was October and November of 2005, where Holy Spirit was helping me to see differently. It's funny because, again, it's a scene now that's much easier for me, but then, then it wasn't. And so it took a bit of work, it seems like, a few messages, a bit of work on Holy Spirit's part to create this shift in my mind. But what Holy Spirit wanted me to see is that I am, and of course this is true for all of us, of course, is that I am life itself. And that if in any moment my mind tries to question that, all I have to do in that moment is stop and realize that I'm living. And what's really funny is that our mind does try to question that. It doesn't question it in an overt way, because it doesn't question it in a very overt way where you'll totally recognize that it's questioning whether you exist or not. But it does question it, and if you start paying close attention, you will notice that it questions it. Even in something as simple as a seeming conflictual situation where, you know, one person is saying that you are wrong, for example. You made a statement, maybe you said this is what's meant by such and such in A Course in Miracles, and somebody steps up and says, no, this is what meant. This is what is meant. And they're attempting to prove you wrong. There might be a panic that comes up, you know, in these situations sometimes. There might be a panic. This panic is actually a panic that is coming up from a fear that you don't exist. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to grasp for your existence, or you might even call it grasp for your identity. That might be easier for you to understand. But it's really doing that. It's trying to find your place again, because your place is feeling threatened. Your identity is feeling threatened. Your existence is feeling threatened. That's where this panic comes from. And what Holy Spirit is saying here is that if you can start to realize in those moments of panic, if you could just stop and realize that right now you're living, right now everything is fine, you can let that panic pass over you. This is sort of the same thing that Holy Spirit taught me through the mantra that I was given in April, the I am that I am mantra. I also realized at one point that this is what Peace Pilgrim taught. I remember Peace Pilgrim used to teach that whenever we are not at peace, it's because our mind is focused on the future or the past. And that if we would just be focused on now, we would realize we are always okay now. And we would always be at peace. And I remember I used to argue with that idea. I used to think, I might not be okay now. There might be something very, very wrong now. I didn't buy that story, that now was always okay. But later I came to realize what she meant was, I am existing now. And when I realized that fully, without the belief that that existence could be threatened, without the belief that that existence could end, when I see that I am existence itself, when I see I am that I am, when I see this is eternal, then there is a peace, even if things do not seem okay now. Because there's a realization that whatever experience I am experiencing is temporary, and I am that which is eternal. There's no fear that I'm going to cease to exist or somehow permanently lose through this experience. And this is where the peace comes from. So this is why Holy Spirit wants us to realize that we exist. And He means this in a very deep way. Because when we truly realize that we exist, and that existence is what we are, and that everything else is temporary, and it can't touch that which we are, then we can allow all other experiences to come and go. And the miracle that is merely the shift in perception, the miracle that does not provide anything in form to fill any seeming lack or to take care of any seeming fear, but yet shows this to us, that I am existence, that I am eternal, and this experience is temporary, and it cannot truly touch me, it cannot truly hurt me, for I am before, during, and after this experience. That's where true peace comes from, is that kind of a shift. It's much more helpful than anything that we may call a miracle, which is actually being provided for in form without the shift in mind that erases the belief in lack. Because everything in form is temporary, including something that we might be provided with to fill a temporary gap. But if the shift occurs, and we see that we cannot be hurt, for example, through starvation, then food can come and food can go, and we can still be at peace, because we know we are not that which needs food. We truly know we are that is beyond even this lifetime. And that's the peace that passeth understanding. And this is why Holy Spirit wants us to realize that we exist right now, always, in no moment is that not true. I exist. I always exist. I exist before, during, and after every experience that comes my way. So Holy Spirit says again that if reality is not the truth of existence, then God is dead, and all that is isn't. And then he says, yet you know this cannot be, for you realize that you exist. This is one fact you cannot deny. You are existence, and this you know. All that is because you are. So the truth must be true, and reality must be reality. And the dream that you call life must be an illusion, because it will not last. And you will last, because you are existence. And existence can have no end, or else existence would not exist. This is the shift of the miracle, a change in perspective that shows the false must be false, because the truth is true. And that is the end of that particular message. And what I'm going to do is just let go of the mic for a second and see if anyone else has anything they want to share.